Ketogenic chocolate ice cream or brownies. The base ingredients: protein powder with vanilla flavor. You could also use already chocolate flavor, which would make it easier, I guess. Cacao, cinnamon. That's mostly it. So now we take the vanilla bulk powder. This comes with 25 grams of protein per scoop, which is 35 grams. We take 2 of these. I find that 2 are often enough, especially since we also add cacao. Of course, you can make more if you want to. And since this is basically purely protein, you might also not get that overweight from this. As a next step, we also add the cacao. Here I usually eyeball the whole thing because I cannot really measure it. So I usually just cut it open on one side, and then I just add a little bit. Here you can also vary. Depending on how bitter you like your chocolate or cacao, you can just add a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on your taste and preference. Now, I guess this is about also 1 scoop. Now we add just a little bit of cinnamon. Here you can maybe add a lot, like me, because cinnamon also blunts your blood sugar response. Since there are a few carbs in there, this might be useful, but also it tastes like cinnamon. Now, what I also usually add is a little bit of baking soda. Why? So you want to get the normal baking soda that is basically just natrium bicarbonate, which is sodium bicarbonate. What I also usually add is a sprinkle of salt. And that's about it. So now we only need 1 thing more. And this 1 thing more can be either a vitamin tablet that is solvable in water, and here I have one that is flavored with a little bit of fruit, so this should be orange. And the rest I think will be just a normal water, otherwise it will get too sweet. But of course, in order to get rid of the sweetness, you can just add more cacao, since cacao is pretty bitter anyways. So we now add the water, and now it becomes useful if you have a bowl that is big enough, such that you can stir the whole thing up. So in the beginning you have to be careful, because otherwise the whole thing will, especially in a bowl that is on the smaller side, will stir up and leave the bowl, which is not something you want to have. Usually I have at least 2 or 3 times this happening whenever I stir it up. What you also could already do is you could already try and taste what it tastes like, and then see if you want to add either more sweetness, i.e. vanilla protein powder, or you want to add more bitterness or chocolateness. If you want this to be even sweeter, then you could add something like stevia, I guess. You could also add something like this, we already discussed. This is just a water-soluble vitamin tablet I already have to take, kind of, according to my daily regimen of supplements. So therefore I could also just throw it in there. So now we kind of have a consistency that is close to brownies, and you can already eat this, I would say, and it actually tastes pretty good. What I recently also tried is to add a little bit of nut powder into this. You can add hazelnuts, for example, or almonds. The problem with these nut powders is that they have lots of calories compared to this here, which just consists out of protein, and of course also of the fat from the cacao. Cacao's macronutrients are actually pretty decent. They are basically ketogenic. So we can see here, fat is 20 grams, 21.9 grams. Then protein, which we find under eiweiß, is 23.3 grams. So a ratio in terms of weight of 1-to-1 between protein and also fat. But unfortunately, we also have a ratio of 1-to-5 from the carbs, which are called Kohlenhydrate. Now, what you also have to keep in mind is that fat has twice the nutrient density, energy density, compared to the other 2 macronutrients. Meaning, if you eat 1 gram of fat, you have 9 kilocalories, but 1 gram of carbs or protein only results in 4. But since we only took at max maybe 30 grams of the cacao, we should not exceed probably not 10 grams of fat. The protein powder also doesn't have fat. The super trick now to make this taste even more like chocolate and less like protein powder is to actually add fat. So you can't just add sunflower oil, but of course in terms of low of this being low caloric and also high in protein, this kind of kills the ratio. But I did notice that if you just add an oil that is not olive oil, because olive oil has a very unique taste, then very easily it tastes almost exactly like brownie fudge, like these. They are almost kind of creamy. Now we have this, and we could already eat this. But what you also can do is add more water and turn the brownie fudge into ice cream. You can also do this only with half of it. Of course, you can also do the same thing without the cacao. So you can make basically a vanilla fudge. So now we take this here and we add again water, and you want to get this to a consistency where it is similar to what you would imagine ice cream would look like if it was not frozen. It's because ice cream obviously is also frozen. I do not have access to my freezer currently, but I can only show you this, therefore like this here. So you want to get it to a pudding consistency, and then you want to freeze the whole thing. Of course, you can also freeze this already, and then it is just colder. And this also, the coldness gets also rid of some of the sweetness. So if it is too sweet, you can also just cool it down, and this increases the taste, given that you then can basically eat sweeter while having it colder. Now, this is about the consistency you want to have, maybe a little bit more on the solid side even, and then you want to put it into the freezer. If you want to have this and there is too much sweetness in there, or you want to have it more fluffy, what you also again just can add is baking soda, because baking soda actually makes things more fluffy. I mean, it makes cake more fluffy because it just adds basically air into the whole mix. And then without even adding water, it adds this kind of fluffiness. I could even add more, but then it would get rid of, so then you would have the taste of the baking soda, overthrowing the bitterness of the chocolate, basically, the cacao, and also the other thing. But as you're beginning to see, it is a little bit now on the fluffier side. The baking soda also adds this kind of mild taste. Of course, you don't want to overdo it, but it makes the whole thing kind of mild, similar to how fat would make something mild. The reason I cannot show you the freezing part is because I actually wanted to fast for a longer period, and therefore I locked my fridge and also with my freezer. And that's basically it.